In 2026, Ukraine is actively inviting international tourists to cross its borders. At the exact same time, the country is fighting a full-scale war to defend its territory. It is a jarring reality to wrap your head around. You might feel a pull to go, to witness history unfolding and put your money into the hands of locals rebuilding their lives. But that desire immediately runs into a wall of practical fears, navigating logistical chaos, managing physical safety risks, or the worry that simply showing up makes you a burden on a nation under siege. The Ukrainian state addresses this through initiatives like the Journey to Yourself program. They frame travel as solidarity tourism, a deliberate mechanism to preserve cultural heritage and inject hard currency directly into local resilience efforts. This chart shows how Ukraine fits into the current European travel landscape. On the vertical axis, we have the authenticity and impact of the experience, and on the horizontal, the logistical friction required to get there. Traditional destinations like Paris or Rome cluster down here in the low-friction, medium-impact zone. Ukraine sits way up here in the extreme top right. It requires maximum logistical friction, but it delivers maximum impact. What you get for enduring that friction is access to perfectly intact European architecture and deeply rooted traditions. Places like Lviv's Market Square offer a vibrant, cobblestone reality that remains preserved despite the broader conflict. Choosing Ukraine means trading the predictable comforts of a standard holiday for a highly intentional experience. It requires vigilance, but it rewards you with a level of purpose you cannot find on a standard European tour. This matrix breaks down the country into distinct regional profiles to help you weigh your options. We start on the left with Lviv and the Western region. The data here points to a high architectural draw, a relative sanctuary vibe, and low physical risk. To access the West, you cross via land borders from Poland or Slovakia. You keep your transit contained without needing to travel deep into the central or eastern territories. The immediate reward is stepping straight into untouched medieval fortresses. The sheer scale of structures like Kamieniec-Podilski Castle gives you direct access to centuries of layered history, completely isolated from the modern frontlines. Within these Renaissance walls, daily life presses forward. The region's famous underground coffee culture remains vibrant, with hundreds of historic cellars roasting beans and serving locals without interruption. But because the West functions as a national safe haven, it is operating well over capacity. The cities are crowded with displaced citizens and international aid organizations, putting noticeable strain on hotels, transport, and basic infrastructure. The Western sanctuary is the right choice if you prioritize deep architectural beauty and a safer environment, provided you have the patience to navigate crowded streets and transit bottlenecks. Moving to the next column in our regional matrix, we look at the Carpathian Mountains and Chernivtsi. This area scores high for ecological and cultural draws, offers a true retreat vibe, but introduces moderate logistical friction. Reaching these isolated ecological zones requires commitment. You have to book long overnight trains from the western hubs, followed by winding drives up into the high-altitude trails surrounding places like Sinevere Lake. Up here, you find living heritage. These highland communities maintain their ancient traditions, crafts, and clothing, functioning almost entirely disconnected from the urban conflict. The region also holds spectacular architectural anchors. Tucked into the foothills are intricate complexes like Chernivtsi University, bringing a burst of Austro-Hungarian grandeur to the rustic landscape. Further along the mountain paths, you encounter centuries-old zerkvas. Their dark timber construction is built entirely without nails, marking some of the most unique religious architecture in Eastern Europe. Accessing this environment means leaving modern conveniences behind. You lose the flexibility of easy city hopping and must rely on rustic, demanding mountain infrastructure to get around. If you are willing to trade logistical ease for a deep psychological disconnect, this region provides an unmatched path for quiet cultural immersion and nature therapy. Looking at our final column, we map the capital, Kyiv, and the central region. This is defined by a massive history and resilience draw, a distinct frontline vibe, and extremely high logistical and emotional friction. Pushing into the center of the country requires strict vigilance. You must actively navigate nighttime curfews, monitor air alert apps constantly, and pass through heightened security checkpoints. The draw is standing face to face with an ancient endurance that has survived centuries of empires. The golden domes of the Kyiv Petrosklavra rise intact above the modern skyline, anchoring the city to its thousand-year past. But that ancient history sits right next to the immediate present. In liberated suburbs like Bucha and Irpin, specialized respectful war tours allow visitors to bear witness to the raw aftermath of the capital's defense. Here, you see homes undergoing structural repair, while everyday life quietly reasserts itself on the exact same street. It is a real-time look at a society stitching itself back together. This is an emotionally heavy experience. It requires intense psychological bandwidth to process the awe of historic monuments one minute and the gravity of recent visible trauma the next. Visiting the capital means giving up carefree travel comforts for a front-row seat to a nation's immediate survival. You leave with a perspective on Ukrainian history that balances thousand-year-old domes against last week's repairs. A successful trip to Ukraine in 2026 relies entirely on matching your personal motivations with the geopolitical realities on the ground. This decision tree asks a critical question. What is your primary travel goal? It splits into relaxation and escapism, or active empathy and history. If you want a frictionless resort vacation to unwind, follow the first path. It leads to a clear endpoint. Do not travel to Ukraine. Expecting leisurely escapism here will only lead to ruined trips and frustration over military curfews. More importantly, treating a war zone like a playground drains vital local resources that are needed for recovery. If your goal is active empathy, we move to a second note. What is your risk tolerance? For low to moderate tolerance, your matches are the Western Sanctuary and the Carpathian Mountain Retreat. For a high immersion experience, follow the path straight to the capital, the epicenter of resilience. Utilizing local guides and committing to this kind of solidarity tourism provides immediate funding to the local economy. It protects local heritage and directly empowers the people, rebuilding their neighborhoods. When standing in Kyiv, looking up at the soaring victory column in Independence Square, the physical reality of the nation's defiant spirit is undeniable. Ukraine's heritage remains unbowed. Choosing to travel here in 2026 shifts the act of visiting from simple sightseeing to a deliberate engagement with the nation's future.